Radical.
I want to talk about briefly why I decided not to do a tribute to Hulk Hogan, the character Hulk Hogan. The difference between my tribute to Ozzy Osbourne is I was talking about the history and the career and how great Ozzy Osbourne was as a person and a performer. And no one's squeaky clean. I'm sure there's things probably about Ozzy that I could look up that were negative. No one is squeaky clean, okay? No one is perfect. You can find out some bad things about just about anybody, I would say. It was the same week, and I was going to transition right from doing a Ozzy tribute to doing a Hulk Hogan tribute. Because I've watched a lot of Hulk Hogan matches. I know a lot about Hulk Hogan. I've looked up a lot of his matches from the past. And I kept, right after the news of his death, I kept looking up all these matches, and I was going to do maybe a top 10 list of my favorite matches I've ever seen from him. I was going to do a lot of things. It's going to be a long tribute. But I decided not to. Because the more and more things I looked up about Hulk Hogan, it seemed like there was more worse things than positive things. And maybe that's unfair. But the thing about positive things and negative things is, for every positive thing, it's kind of like a ratio, right? I mean, somebody could do something really, really good. Maybe it's not fair. Somebody could do something really, really good, and then they could do something really, really bad, and the really, really bad stuff will be, you'll pay more attention to that bad stuff more than the good stuff. But the bad stuff is pretty damn bad. The biggest thing people bring up about Hulk Hogan that happened within the past 10 years is the thing that got him temporarily fired from WWE right after. It was the fact he had a special sex tape with somebody, and I hadn't seen the sex tape. I don't want to see Hogan's sex tape. It's not like a one night in China kind of thing. Like I don't want to see Hulk Hogan getting busy, brother. I don't want to see that, right? But there was a lot of stuff revealed. Racist. There was a racist rant that he had during the sex tape or after, or he's talking to his son. And I can't even repeat a lot of the stuff that he said to his son. But let's just say that he's kind of a racist piece of shit, okay? So there's that. And there's a lot of other things. But that's the main thing people really look at. They really kind of spoiled them on Hulk Hogan. And even there was a tribute I didn't get to see, but I heard there was a tribute on WWE TV, because how could you not acknowledge and have like a 10-bell salute for Hulk Hogan in WWE, right? Even with all the bad stuff. But it seemed like a lot of the wrestlers that were collected there, I heard that some were missing. Some just looked kind of like pissed off to be there. And some were not even respectful of Hogan, like Dominic Mysterio. He was loudly chewing gum and just kind of looking around. So I think a lot of them didn't want to be there for that tribute to Hulk Hogan. So yeah, it's mostly, that's what people bring up. And you can't deny he's a racist piece of shit. You can't deny that. That's part of his legacy. Terry Bollea, not Hulk Hogan. Also, you have him as a gigantic liar. He's a lying douche. The guy even lied about Metallica trying to scout him, and some story about how he was almost playing bass in Metallica. And he kept changing the story around once he was confronted about it. He's criticized heavily beloved wrestlers like Mick Foley, basically saying he's prostituted his body out, and he took knocks at the fact that he doesn't have a great physique and everything. So that was kind of shitty. One of the shittiest things, though, was the fact that back in the 80s, Jesse Ventura, he was a wrestler back in the 80s also. And I found out that there was going to be a union, or a lot of the wrestlers were getting together to try to form a union in the WWF when it was WWF. And what deep sixed it was there was a snitch. There was a snitch. And that was Hulk Hogan himself. He snitched out to Vince that the boys were talking about starting up a union. And of course, it would make sense that he would not want a union, Because, believe it or not, at that time, Hulk Hogan was making more money than not only Andre the Giant, but every single wrestler in that company. That's how much he was making. So why the fuck would Hogan want a union? That would only take some of his money away, he thought, right? There was also a shitty moment to where, you might have heard this one, he was having matches with The Undertaker, and The Undertaker was incredibly afraid that he had hurt Hulk Hogan. So, after a Tombstone Piledriver, Hulk Hogan actually pretended that his neck was injured. Now, just grasp how shitty that is. To actually pretend that you got a stinger, that you got your neck injured, and Undertaker was so worried and so stressed out. That's about one of the shittiest things, I think. Even worse than, I think, the Jesse Ventura stuff with, snitching about the unions. Even worse than the racist tirade. To me, I think it might be. Because if you're in a match with somebody, you're afraid of hurting them, especially near the neck or the head. Your fear is injuring someone in that kind of spot because you can paralyze somebody. So he let Undertaker think that he hurt his neck, until Undertaker actually looked over the tape and saw that his head didn't come anywhere near the fucking mat when he took that Tombstone Piledriver. So that right there is a piece of shit, man. That is a self-absorbed, selfish piece of shit. Always just looking out for number one. And throughout his career, he refused to put other wrestlers over. He needed contracts with full creative control. I think he even refused to take a loss to the great Shawn Michaels. And there was a match where Hulk was taking on Shawn Michaels. And it's funny if you look it up online, is Shawn knew that he was not going to let him go over on the match, I think. And he took super bumps. Like, he was comical. He was comical in the fact, like, when Hogan barely, tapped or punched him, he would go flying like crazy. He threw him into the turnbuckle, and he went flying, flopping everywhere, right? It's a really funny match to see, to look at. So that's mostly the reason I can't do a tribute to Hulk Hogan. And there's probably a lot of things that I forget now. A lot of things that I forget. Now, the positive is, from what I hear, he was really friendly to the fans. He would stay in the lines really long to do autographs. I've not met that many wrestlers in my life. I've never met Hulk Hogan. I've met Ric Flair, who seemed a bit tore up about his passing. And Ric Flair is he's a piece of shit, There's some wrestlers I've met, they're just pieces of shit. Some are really friendly. But I just recall that Ric Flair didn't want to, he didn't want to even really talk or acknowledge, you're there. It seemed like he was there just to sign an autograph and just move on, But Hogan, it's tough. I would finish by saying, we can and possibly should celebrate Hulk Hogan, the wrestler, and what he meant to the WWE now, what was WWF. Because without Hogan, I don't think wrestling gets nearly as popular as it did. Without Hogan, without Rock and Wrestling, without that era in the 80s, without No Holds Barred, the movie, without Hulk Hogan basically being that guy that popularized wrestling, I don't think you have what you have today. So Hulk Hogan's character, a lot about who he was, and yeah, he was a basic wrestler, but looking at his matches, he knew how to sell. He knew how to relate, get to the fans and everything. Yeah, so you can celebrate Hulk Hogan as the wrestler, especially in the 80s and 90s from his peak. But you can also heavily criticize Terry Bollea, the person. But I think all the shit with Terry Bollea, it overshadows the greatness of the character of Hulk Hogan. Because ultimately, the person is more important than the character that they play. So that's why I can't do any kind of tribute to Hulk Hogan.